Oh, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. We are live. Good afternoon. And you are watching When Women Step Up. I am so excited. Today we have Miss Zaneta Adams, Juris Doctorate. Yes. Woohoo. And we go a long way back. A long way back. I want to say more than 10 years.
yeah. Probably about 10 years now, right?
Yeah, about 10
Yeah.
years. Wait a minute, you can see it on the wait a minute, let's turn this way. It's right there on the wall when we did the inaugural Women's Veterans Resource Fair.
Mm-hmm.
And um, wow, we have come a long way.
Yes, we have. Yes, we have. Elevating women veterans' voices and concerns and issues. And so it's a journey, but we keep going, right?
We absolutely do. And here I go again. We're gonna just 1 second. There we go. I am really excited about today because I want to say today is the 8th of February already. Wow. And so I believe it was like February 1st, February 2nd. I get this email and it starts talking about 1 million veterans. And then I click on it and it says Zanetta Adams. And I said, oh, I get excited. I did. I got excited. I said, oh my goodness. I said, wait a minute. This is the national newsletter. This is not like the local, CBOC, which is, our veteran medical station, which is actually 6 minutes away from me.
Mm-hmm.
This is the national, email. And I said, oh, wait a minute. And so as I was reading through it, I got a little weepy because when people talk about post traumatic stress disorder, they always immediately go to Vietnam and they think men,
Mm-hmm.
just immediately. And back then, it was called shell shock. And they never think about a woman of color, one that might be married, may have children. They don't they don't think like that. And unfortunately this is 2023, and when you call the VA or even when you go in, so um yeah, so who's the veteran? And they always look at my husband and I'm just like, no, I'm the veteran. Oh, honey, you're a veteran.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was so excited when I saw you on there, and I was like, yes, and talking about PTSD.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting that you talk about what we think the person who's dealing with what they look like, because I don't even think women necessarily identify as having PTSD right away, because we deal with things differently, and that's what makes us different from men. And it took me a long time to actually recognize and um, recognize that I needed to talk to somebody about whatever the stuff I was dealing with, which I thought I was dealing with it well, and probably some things were good, some things were probably I needed to work on. But it wasn't until 2020 that um, I was diagnosed with PTSD from my injury, because it was one of those things. I was like, well, I wasn't in combat, so I can't have PTSD. And I'm like, well, you fell almost 11 feet from a truck during a combat operation. Like, you're, and one of the things I had a psychologist tell me um, that I met along the way was that when we train for basic training and we train for combat simulations, our brains don't know the difference between actual war and the training of war. And so when you're dealing with something and you get injured in the field, whether it be in the training field preparing to go, when they have, how they had
Mm-hmm.
NTC in California, and they just have these live simulations. Your body doesn't know the difference. Your brain doesn't know the difference. So I carried a lot of guilt with feeling the way I felt because I hadn't been in combat. So why would I tell somebody that? So yeah, it wasn't until 2020, and the pandemic, while it has had its negatives and we lost a lot of people because of the pandemic, it has been a blessing too, because I had time, I had the ability to be able to seek mental health assistance and reach out and talk to somebody and be able to talk through it and go through CPT and all of that. So yeah.
Um, I guess for me, they readily said back then it wasn't PTSD; they called it bipolar, and I think that was around the time when we started to do the Women's Resource Fair in 2013, where they said, okay, we need to change the languaging. We have all of these women who have experienced military sexual trauma, and the way you respond to it. Well, to us, it was like, yeah, it's like you guys were bipolar,
Yeah.
but we realized that no, that's called post traumatic stress disorder, and so they went and they changed everybody's, all the women's records that I know of. That there were some males. I don't want to disrespect any male, but that was just our experience during that time, and we were all most grateful. And I guess if you want to say expunged that from our record, and they replaced it with PTSD. I guess so for me, I had a longer time to deal with PTSD and to have treatment. And there are days where it's good, and there's days where it's I don't even want to say not so good. But I want to say this to you, whether you said you didn't reach out to 2020. However, you already had empathy, and I want to say on some level you had accepted it, because when we saw each other in 2019, we were at an event in Muskegon, and it was Women for Whitmer, and we shared a moment that I'm not. It was the respect. It was the respect, and what I love about our veteran community, especially the women, that we can talk without speaking. We can understand without it being explained. And you greeted me at the door, and just the dignity that you had towards me, you came and you said, "How are you today, Dr. Kennedy?" And I said, "I'm doing well, thank you." And you said, "If there's anything that you need, I will personally make sure that they're attended to." I remember when I was in a wheelchair, and how people looked at me and how I was treated. And I want to make sure that you are treated with the utmost respect. And so I'm going to personally make sure that you get on stage. And if there's anything that you need, you just let me know. I'll just be right here because I got your six. That,
Yeah, I
um,
appreciate you sharing that because I remember when you came and it's funny you bring the conversation up and I hadn't thought about it again, um, because I I truly believe that some of the worst things sometimes that happen to us in life are things that we can use and turn around to have empathy for other people and to have understanding if we so choose to. Sometimes we don't recognize that this is an opportunity, and so um, I truly believe that I'm here for a reason. I have been I have had many rams in the bush when I was struggling with mental health, um, and so I feel like God has always provided for me to have a way out, and I can't take that lightly. I'm here for some reason, right? And it's not just for myself. So I appreciate you sharing that, because that's just me doing for others how I want to be treated.
And I think that's the piece um, that many miss, because normally, when people see you, they want to pat you on the head as if you're a puppy dog. And there's a difference between having someone inspire you and being inspirational, and they want to say, oh my God, it's so inspirational that you actually showed up. Like, oh my gosh, this is just so wonderful. But why shouldn't I show up? Why do you have the expectation that I would not, show up? Why would you have the expectation that I shouldn't participate in life?
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
I think part of the expectation is that, I remember when I was in my chair and I didn't, people would ask me, like, even now with my story, it'd be great if we had a picture with you and you were in the wheelchair, and now, and I'm like, I didn't take pictures when I was injured. I didn't want to take pictures. I didn't want to remember that time.
mhm.
I was, um, I was embarrassed. I didn't feel right. As you probably know, people didn't think, oh, this person was injured serving in the military. Then that was never the first thought. And so for me, there was no dignity in my injury. There was just a lot going on in that space. And so I didn't want to necessarily show up. I was alive, but I wasn't living. And it wasn't until I started getting involved in some sports and things like that for disabled veterans, wounded warriors, all of that, that I started to come out of my shell. But had it not been for those things, I probably wouldn't have showed up the way you did. So it is admirable that you put your makeup on, you put your fancy sharp heels on, and you get dressed to impress. You do it. You show up, and you don't just show up. You show out when you show up. So um, that is something to be commended. And if it's just to get yourself out of bed, you're struggling with a severe back injury or a severe injury that's causing you great pain or is keeping you debilitated. If you just get up to wash your face and brush your hair and maybe put on a little lip gloss, or for guys maybe it's chapstick, you do that, that'll help you. That will elevate your
I'm telling you,
attitude.
I so I had started a lash company, Kavon, Lashes by Kavon, and years before, when I found out that I had cancer, I had lost all of my hair, and I started the head surgeries, and the doctor said, you need to find a team, Kim, because this is going to be a rough road, and there's going to be days where you're going to want to give up, and you're not going to want to do this, and you're going to need some folks in your corner that are going to show up for you when you can't show up for yourself. And that was the best advice I was ever given, especially from a physician. And he said, you know, I work for you. We are a team and we have to do this together. There's not going to be this magic pill. And we didn't know it was going to, end up to this point and being in the wheelchair and, several surgeries later. But just what he said, it meant a lot. And in that moment, that's what you did for me. Because there are times where, you know, I show up, I don't always have the most confidence. I might look good, you know, girl, lashes be on point, clothes, yes, custom made, just boom, shoes to match, got your nails. And on the inside, I'm dreading it because I, when I was in my manual chair, the oh, this is so difficult. The fact that people have to look down on you and that posturing, it really works on your self-esteem.
Listen, the best thing I was able to do when I was in the wheelchair, I was at this event, and they had self defense for people in wheelchairs, like to feel empowered. Like how could I use my cane to like to defend myself? How can I do what I'm doing in the wheelchair? Like it was empowering. So I definitely understand what you're saying. And as you're talking, I'm like, I see two new ventures for you. I see one because I see your exploits. It's really funny about your eyelashes. You could totally have a cartoon about where the eyelash is next, right? The one that's lost, the one that got away.
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, that's right. I did. I think I included you in. So this is side note. The reason why I had brought up about the lash business, because it was my eye, that's on. It was on everything, and the slogan was, "No matter how you feel, get up, dress up, and show up, and never give up, because somebody needs your story for today." And so I would tell people that on my if I look really really good, just know that that's a really bad day for me, because that's all I have left is I got to get up, I got to show up, I got to dress up, and I can never give up,
Yeah.
because when I get there, somebody's gonna need, what does this say, Dr. Kimberly something, something's happening. It says, I don't know what this means. Anyway, and so the lash thing was just, it really helped me to come out of myself,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
about feeling sorry for myself, and just the posturing, people having to stand over me and looking down on me. That just,
Well, I mean, I think it goes along with the same saying of, you always hear dress for the job you want, not the job you have.
that's it.
Dress for the emotion you want to have for the day, not the one you start out with. Maybe that's right, right? Get yourself up and get it
I like,
together.
I
Take a
like that.
shower, man, a shower could do wonders, right? To making you feel better. So,
Girl.
and people want to be around you too when you do that. So, I mean, definitely, I think having that same mindset about how we show up just so that we can get through that moment is truly truly critical. So it definitely has been a pleasure getting to know you, and I appreciate you sharing that with me because we sometimes never know the impact that we make just on what I would say small steps.
Hmm. Well, that, I don't even think that was a small step. Here it is. Uh, she had just become governor, and she was coming back around to those constituents that helped to get her in office. And so your first thoughts are, wow, what is the governor going to think about me? You know what I mean? Um, and how are the other women going to receive me being in this wheelchair? And so you kind of want to be a little extra, but that probably, that's probably part of my personality anyway. But so you have all of these things that are going on inside of your mind, and that's enough to make you crazy right there. It's trying to worry about what people are going to think. How are they going to treat you? What are they going to say to you? And are they going to say something ignorant? Are you, what kind of bag do you need to come out of? And finally, I was in prayer, and the Lord said to me, today will be the last day that you entertain all of this, because you need to go back to before you even got in that wheelchair. You were more crippled, but people, because they couldn't see it, they were like, oh, well, she's cute. She got 6-inch heels on, and her lashes, her nails are long, and nobody thought anything was wrong. And I realized that I was more crippled, more paralyzed when I was actually walking around than I ever have been being in this wheelchair. I have never been more confident. more whole and healed mentally, emotionally, spiritually than since I've been in this wheelchair. And then, oh my Lord, they gave me this Bentley. You can't tell me nothing now, because I can raise up on you. You want to talk to me? Hold on, let me push the button. Yes, And I love that people are talking. And when we start out, you might be a little bit taller than me, and then I'm just listening, and I'm steady pushing the button, and then people are like, "Oh, wait a minute, I'm at eye level," and then the conversation changes. You know, their tone and tenor changes when you become face to face, and it's like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, great job. And I can say that, walking into the space, I mean, kind of all started really with that, with the governor coming to West Michigan a lot of times before she was governor and then after. But, being in the position I was in, with the state for the last almost 4 years, I can tell you that there were many times I had that feeling of imposter syndrome. And one of the things that helped me was remembering that I had all the tools necessary to do the job. I had the credentials, I had the education, and I had the, like you said, the empathy and the understanding of the community. And so I had all the tools to do the job. And so I had to, again, like you said, back down that that feeling that, listen, you weren't picked for as a token. You weren't picked because you weren't chosen and selected because you just know a lot of people. It was because of the skills and the things that you brought to the table to really help veterans. And I feel like I did that. If it was one veteran a day, then that made an impact. And I believe that when we help one person, at least, even one person, we create a ripple effect. And so, prayerfully, I was able to make many ripples, positive ripples, throughout
Well,
the
oh
state
my
during my
God,
time.
you know what? If I had something, wait, I'm just gonna go like this. I'm gonna throw this at you, okay, and hope it hits you ping right there in the middle of your forehead, and then bounces down off your nose, and then comes back around and hits you in the back of the head. Did I say that out loud? I did. I think that's called the boomerang effect. And I love your honesty in saying, about the imposter syndrome, because there's been many a day where I have felt that way. And even felt like when I come in the room, I'm just gonna tell you who I am. Oh well, no, I'm Dr. Kennedy. Or now I'm Dr. Barrington because I got married, and that just because you're always wondering, okay, how are they going to receive me when I come in the room? Even I think
Or if I'm enough, right? I think that's the other part.
oh,
Am I
absolutely.
enough?
When you got your appointment, and right after your appointment, I got my appointment, to the state, and it was like, whoa, the responsibility now, and the name recognition. I mean, there had been working with disability advocates of Kent County and going to legislative day and helping to get House bills passed, and you know meeting with the appropriation committee, and just, oh well, we need X amount of dollars, can you come in, and doing some lobbying work. And so you're in these areas, and it's almost like you're kind of like in a pocket, because everybody doesn't get to see all of the work that you're doing. And so you don't want to have to walk around with your resume in your hand all the time. And I think that comes a part of that feeling like that imposter syndrome, because wow, I'm a disabled vet, I'm African American, I have no hair, I'm in this wheelchair, and I got this big scar from surgeries, and you start thinking of all of these things. And then there's someone that comes up to you and says, you know I was in this meeting and you spoke, and I want you to know how you impacted my life today. you know um, you talked about how you had attempted suicide, and I'm so glad that you didn't, because I saw you when you spoke at this event, and this is how you've impacted my life. And then I'm just like, oh, wow.
And that person will have a ripple effect and be able to help somebody else with whatever wisdom they receive from you. And so that's the positive thing, right? And I you know, we all have a story to share, and I will just real quick give a shout out. I saw two folks that I knew on here, Rachel and Autumn. So shout out to Rachel and Autumn, that are viewing. But we all have a story to share, and our stories are unique. They're unique to us. What may have been tough for me may not be tough for someone else, and vice versa. And so, but there are people out there who are dealing with the same things. I know, before we got on here, we were talking about, well, even at the beginning when we started talking to, being a mom and being a wife and being, in the military and dealing with PTSD and us not looking like that. And that's why it's important that we share our stories because, recently, I worked with the VA on a documentary, and I was working on it for the Million Veteran Program. Nothing else. I didn't know it was going to be an impact piece. I didn't know it was going to be any of that. I really didn't even know which questions they were going to ask me. I thought, okay, we're doing this research thing. I'm willing to share, my journey of how I got to discovering I had PTSD, the things I dealt with. Through the years I had been on different medications, and it was for pain and different things like that. And so trying to fail and balance, I'm like, yeah, I definitely could do that. But it's turned into this opportunity and this tool to reach people that are struggling just like me, and to elevate voices that are not being heard. And that's what I've been hearing from women veterans across the country, really. I've been having people reach out to me since the documentary was recently released, saying that, nobody talked about my part of the story until you did. And so that's why we have an obligation, I think, especially when we signed up to serve. We're not done serving. And so I think we have an obligation, whether it be in a small room, on a social media post, on a podcast, or on a national platform, to share our stories in the hopes that we can impact someone's life and help them to see a way out of where they are
at. I agree. It's just last year for Art Prize, we were in Veterans Park, and the theme was 22, because last year the number was 22 veterans that committed suicide a day. And I believe shortly after our exhibit, they said the number was now 27 a day. So I was excited when I saw the email. Here it is, this national email come through, and they're talking about our experiences, from PTSD to committing suicide, and what are some of all the factors. And I love in there, you said, oh, yeah, we know what the special sauce is. We can spread it on everything. And, we could bottle it, we could sell it and say, okay, just take this twice a day. And this is going to help you get through having served in the military. And the piece that I love the most about our experiences is that they transcend our service. And so when we talk about it, there is someone else who can say, you know what, I had an injury and I didn't think that I had PTSD, but I knew that something was going on. A lot of people have PTSD after they have a car accident. They never drive again. Depending on how bad, the accident is, they don't like to drive. And so I probably know a good 50 people that they don't drive. And after years of getting to know them, they finally said, oh, I was in a car accident, so yeah, that's why I don't drive. And they just brush it off. They're just real cavalier about that. And the first thing in my mind is like, oh, they got PTSD. Look at me. I'm trying to be the MSW. I'm a PhD, but you start to notice it in other people, and then you begin to give them some, like your language changes, your
Yeah.
conversation changes. And so now you try to, say things that might encourage them
Hmm.
without saying, you got PTSD, because people don't want to be labeled.
Right. And I think understanding and being able to look outside ourselves too helps us to give people grace, right? You
Mm-hmm.
know, when I was when I had founded Wink and was working with a lot of women veterans, there were some that were very they were in your face. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And some they were a hard pill to swallow for some other of the women veterans. And my thought was is that you don't know what they're struggling with. They could be struggling with PTSD. They could be struggling with a whole host of things, severe pain. And so, not that it's an excuse to treat people any kind of way, but let's give them some grace so that we can provide the services so they can work through it. And time again, when we've done that, we've seen a transformation.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and it's just like with anything. Not even veterans. When we're showing up at the workplace or, at church or in our homes or whatever, we don't always know what people are going through in their mind, what they have untreated for many years until 2020. You never know what people are dealing with. And
Yes.
so, when they're responding in a certain way, like, and I'll give you an example. I'll be transparent here. Like, it used to be like with my kids, for instance, I'm very particular about like where I want to put stuff, where I want to have stuff. Like like everything has a place, right? And so I create my list and things because I want to be organized. And I'm a person that it's about respect as well. Like if you want to use something, you ask permission. Well,
I think I hear a little OCD here. I'm
yeah, look,
just
that's
saying.
that's part of it. But I
Oh.
feel like there's a level of respect there, right? And so
Mhm.
not knowing this was related to PTSD, but like when my kids would like take something of mine or without asking and use it or whatever, I would get very angry. Like I would be very, very upset about it. And it was one of those responses that is like, it's a material thing. Like really, you can teach them how to respect your things and not be so like I'm mad about it for a couple days. Like, how they just gonna take my stuff and not ask me, right? Come to find out that, when I was sexually assaulted, something was taken from me.
Yes.
And I never wanted anything to be taken from me again. And I didn't work through that with somebody because I didn't understand that I coped in my own way and thought I was good and I wasn't. So coming to the realization, and that's why it's important that we not only share our stories, but also that we reach out and get the help that we need because we might be high functioning, folks dealing with stuff. Like you look at me, you say, oh, she's a lawyer, she's doing all this, she's got her hands and everything. Well, part of that is, you say OCD, but part of that is me dealing with PTSD as well because I find purpose in the things I do. And if I don't have that purpose, then it's like there's too much quiet time for me. So I had to find a balance. So that's why it's important that we talk to somebody so we understand some of the things that we're doing that we think is just okay, I'm just irritated. No, it's actually a symptom of what you've dealt with.
Absolutely. And I mean, you gave some great examples, and I will have to say, for me, when people are like, "How do you do everything that you do?" And it's like, honey, if you knew exactly, what I had experienced, then you were like, oh, I get it now. And I too am. I call it, they got high functioning alcoholics. I think that people with PTSD are no different. That we can be extremely social and high functioning, and yet we have some addictions, and they come along, with that. And for me, I was, you know, sexually and physically assaulted, and they were two separate incidents. And the second part came with stalking. And so I have this thing, about, look, I need my space. I don't want to talk to you more than 4 or 5 times. It's like, what's going on? What do you want? What do you need? But it was why am I experiencing this? I remember being in my apartment and I had a neighbor who was older. And I promise you, if anybody, and I'm dating myself, watched 227, how Miss Pearl was always in the window watching what everybody was doing. Mary, Sandra, just always in the window. Well, I had my own Miss Pearl, and she was always in the window. And, I would go to 4 a.m. prayer. Why are you in the window at 3 something in the morning? So I'm coming out, going to my car, and, go to 4 a.m. prayer. And here she's in the window. Hey, girl, say a prayer for me. You going to prayer? I'm like, do you ever sleep, lady? And for me, it put me on edge because why are you watching me? And then I got nervous because here it is. I can't run. I'm in a wheelchair. Anybody could just come and and get me. And so I had this escape plan. How could I get in the car? I had my cell phone set that it was just one push button, and it would dial 911 for me, and then
Mhm.
it would call all my people on the 911 list as well to let them know I was under duress. I mean, I just came up for I had a tactical plan. You see what I'm saying? That
Mhm.
military came in. I had my tactical plan. I was like, yes, and had everything about my chair, made it as a weapon, and then it was like, yep. I went back to all my basic training skills for how we're on the ship. Again, I love what you said. Your mind doesn't know that, okay, we're just playing war games, because we would play war games. We'd be in the middle of the sea. You would hear this sound and they're like, oh my God, we just got hit by a submarine. We're taking on water. Up, the enemy just came on board. You hear all the Marines running around with the guns. You hear shooting. And so you're just like, ah. And they even had bodies where the insides were falling out. You had people who had, um, like, there was a fire in the engine room from when we got hit. And so they would bring someone who had been burned. So they had these bodies that would come up that had burns that you had to treat. You had people who got shot because some of the enemies came on board, and you had to patch up the bullet wounds. And then they had the helicopters on board that were going to try to medevac people off the ship. I mean, whew, that's a lot.
It is, and
Just
and what I take away from that too is that it's good when we talk and we get together and we have these connections, because otherwise we're going through life in our own space with people that don't understand, and then we don't understand that what we're doing is not normal. Right?
right.
It's not necessarily normal, but it's also because we're coping in a way that we're like, this is how people cope, right? Because you're
Yep.
not talking to anybody about it. But then when you get in a room with people like that have had similar experiences or struggling with PTSD, and you're like, wait a minute, this is normal for PTSD, people with PTSD, but this is not normal for the normal population. And so that's why, again, it's important that we talk to somebody, we share our stories, we don't just live in our own bubbles, because some of the things we're doing may not be just a normal reaction that everybody else is dealing with. You might be overreacting or overstimulated, or you may be over hyper cautious, um,
Yes.
and that's not, getting tactical, putting on your flak jacket and all this other stuff.
Girl, you could tell.
That's not that's
I
not
mean,
what normal
and,
people
and what was, oh my
do.
God, and what was so bad is she ended up dying. And I'm like, it's so, so I said, okay, I gotta, get back into therapy because I thought I was doing really great. And all right, here we go. I'm feeling like I'm going back. And so as we're going through the sessions, I think maybe I had got a good 6 weeks in, and was like, I got excited because now I refreshed on some skills, learned some new skills, and I'm going to be okay with her. And so I got up to go to prayer, and I was prepared to respond differently with her being in the window, and then she wasn't there. So then I didn't know what to do. I said, okay, I did all of this to prepare, and she's not there. And I go to prayer, and I come back, and I'm like, She still's not in the window, and she didn't come down because, like, sometimes she'll come down and she'll knock on the door, hey, you know, and nothing happened. And she was up there, she died. And then I felt, wow. And I think that took me back a little bit even more to some of the war games. You know what I mean? Um, like when we would do war games, we had people who had roles and they would always have the same role. And then the captain, they all came up with this new game that we were going to play. So we go out to sea and they changed where people were going to be. And so my expectation of, okay, I know this game, I got this. And then it was like things had changed and I didn't know what to do. And so it took me back to that moment of the war game. Like we we know what the game plan is, and now it changed. So to have to explain that to a civilian, so you end up keeping all that inside, and there's just not that outlet. Let's see, we got a comment here. Let's see. Oh,
Thank you, Autumn. And the baby's cute.
and then I think we got another comment here.
Thank you,
Oh,
Wink.
wink, 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 wink.
Yeah, it has been it's truly been my honor to have these various opportunities to, I guess, share my testimony is what I would say. You know, it's not always been easy. As you look on that documentary, like I thought I was good, and then he started asking these questions, and I'm like, wait, can people do this? Because I got my face all messed up now, look puffy, my nose is running, but no, they wouldn't do a retake. That's fine. But I'm like, I just thought we were simply doing a research thing, which again, if part of the reason I signed up to do it is because not enough women had participated in the Million Veteran program. Really, it's just they have a blood sample and they start to look for markers in certain things in the collective of veterans, and so they can identify things before maybe you have to deal with PTSD from combat. Maybe they identify certain markers that make people more success. I can't even get the word out.
Successful.
Susceptible. Susceptible. I can't think.
Right.
Oh
Okay.
my gosh!
So
Why am
there
I
are
not able
some
to say this
people
word today?
who will be more susceptible to
Susceptible.
having
Oh my gosh.
PTSD versus others. I know one of the things that um, early in the process, when I was experiencing my PTSD, and I had to go and get a CMP exam. And for those who don't know, it's called a compensation and pension exam, where they find out everything that might be wrong with you and that's connected to your service, and then they give you compensation based off of that. And so one of the things that they did, I want to say this was like my first big comp and pin, because I was put on medical leave from active duty. So it wasn't like I got out and then tried to go and get benefits. So my ship, or I should say, my ship did everything, and worked directly with the VA. So I didn't have to do anything. It was like a smooth transition, and I got all these checks, and I got to sit at home, and I was like, "What? This is cool." But so I want to say my first real comp and pin, where you go to the VA, and you sit down with the psychologist and you fill out all this paperwork, and he said, based off of things that happened in your childhood, you were disposed to, probably being assaulted and experiencing PTSD. I said, sir, excuse me, what? So his initial exam was, I don't think that the VA should have to pay you for something that was going to happen to you anyway.
Hmm.
And he goes, so I'm not going to call this bipolar. He told me he wasn't going to call it PTSD. He says, you're just experiencing bipolar. You're going through these, waves of depression, and then you have anxiety, and
Hmm.
then you're just going to keep going up and down. And he goes, but this was going to happen anyway because of things that happened in your childhood. So when I saw the article that came through and I started reading it, I almost wanted to get in my feelings, if you will, because again, it's a trigger of you not acknowledging me, if you will. And regardless of what happened when I was 5 or 10 or 15, it doesn't negate what happened to me on active duty.
Yeah,
And
and I think I definitely think that's valid. And I know part of the purpose of the program too is to make sure, like, if you know that certain environments and certain, we already know that there are certain environments that can create the atmosphere or create the what you need to have PTSD, right? Um, but if you know that there are certain things that are going to make it worse, then you were to create situations within the military or even after service, because we know things are going to happen in service, right? You can't say, well, you know what, and that is crazy that that was said to you. You know what, you were in combat and you saw a lot of people, a lot of your friends die and stuff, but because you were predisposed to PTSD, then we're not going to compensate you, because I mean, come on. I mean, because again, and going back to my lawyer set, well, then let's talk about the aggravation of what I may have had before. But
so,
I
I have it right here because I just took it out of the file cabinet because I was gonna do some different things concerning my case, and they were like, "Oh, okay. If you're gonna do your case this way, you need to provide everything because we're not researching anything. So whatever you send to us, we're gonna make a decision based off of what you send." And I want to say again, thank you, because I can see the growth. I can see for me, and I can see that, oh wow, therapy works, these exercise works, because when I read the article and you talked and I watched the video with your story and others, and when I looked and they said, okay, this is how long we've been doing this research, and they included everything. And so I was like, wow, I want to know where's that doctor so that I can say now to him that what happened to me then is a part of why things are happening. It didn't cause it to happen to me, but it
Mhm,
definitely affected how I responded to it. And
mhm,
so to see that somebody is saying, guess what? There is some validity to
yeah,
what you experienced. And we're not going to hold it against you. We're actually going to use it to help you.
yeah, and what
We're not
treatment's
going to
going to be
deny
best for
you,
you.
but I'm going to give you a yes.
Yeah.
And I think many people miss that. And that's why they don't get the help, they don't come in, and they don't talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also, like, what treatment's going to be best for you, so that we're not putting you on 50 million different medications to see what works, and then we finally find one what sticks. How about we find what sticks in the beginning, and then we don't have to keep, like I said in the video, spinning our wheels. I
Mhm.
think and the other piece is that we need more people they need more people to participate. So, check out the Million Veteran Program and see if that's something that you'd be interested in doing, so that we can, because I did it for me. I know that there's controversy, and people are like, oh, well, they used African Americans for testing, and they're just taking our blood and they're using it. I get all that. I look at it from the perspective of this. Can my blood, can what I've provided to the VA save a life, positively impact a life? Because that's what I'm here for. That is what I was put on this earth to do, is to help others. and to hope that there's other people put on earth to help me. And so,
Well, you know what? I'm glad that you gave your blood, and but you gave your blood a long time ago. And I'm not crying again with you, but you gave it so that in 2019, when you saw me, you could help me, you know?
yeah,
And I gave my blood back in 1990,
trust me, 1900.
1990 something back then. The experiences that I had, the blood that I gave, that in 2020, when I had a young lady on the show and she was able to transition better, she transitioned immediately. She had the help that she needed because of the blood that I gave back in 1990 something. That here, when she was discharged in, 20, I want to say 2019 or 2018, when she was discharged, that guess what? We got the history of, you know, petty officer, we're just going to say petty officer B. Back then, she gave, she did, we have some of her information. And so when this young lady experienced the same thing, they had knowledge of it. I mean, we were probably in the same area, experienced, some of the same things. And so I look at it that, we have other women that have had experiences and they're like, I remember when you were down at the healthcare for homeless vets and you spoke to us, on Fridays, they have guest speakers. And it's like, I remember when you came down there and you told your story and it made a difference for me. So we all, if you're out there, I implore you to share your story
Yeah.
because your story is your blood, and that's the blood that's going to help and heal somebody else.
And based on the title of this show, that's how you step up. You don't have to do something, some big grand gesture to step up. You can step up, and it doesn't have to be a huge step. It can be a small step, but it's still a step up.
And it is. I love it. And Autumn is on here. I love her, and she's going to let me do this. No, she's not going to be mad. But she and I had a conversation the other day, and she was just like, you're my shiro. I said, girl, I love you too, and you're mine. And she says, I look at you and I think I can't do what she does. She thinks I do stuff on a grand level. Maybe I do. I don't know. It just seems simple to me. But she came up with an idea and wanted to know my opinion. And I was like, oh my gosh, absolutely yes. And, gave some insight that she asked for. And I was like, wow, she's going to be on the show. Yeah, you hear that, Autumn? You're going to be on the show. Because why? She stepped, she made the decision to step up within her sphere of influence. She wasn't a mother before, and she was doing some great things before she was a mom. And I love the way she showed up in life and how she was, helping others. And now that she's a mom, it's like, oh, there's some things that have changed about her lifestyle and how things can be improved and how she can like, wow, I can help others with what I've learned. And that's what it's about is we don't need to compare traumas because what's traumatic for you is traumatic for you, and I respect it and I'll be there for you. And what's traumatic for me is traumatic for me. And you don't have to have lost all your hair and have 5 head surgeries and jaw surgeries and a stroke and all of that for me to feel like, oh, okay, well now you're important. No. If you stubbed your toe, true story, you stub your toe, you can't get in your shoe and they put you in a boot and you find a way and it's in the middle of winter and you make this cute little cozy to keep your toes warm over that boot, guess what? You stepped up. You did something. You changed the way things could be for somebody else because of what you experienced. You're like, you know what? I don't want anybody else to experience this. So I'm going to do this. And that's what it's about. And that's all I'm doing is I want to highlight those women who people kind of like overlook every single day. But she's making a difference.
Yeah, and I think, it was tough being in that space at times, like where I was elevated at the state level. And I'll say that because, I think sometimes I have a lot of empathy, I have a lot of compassion. I also, had to be business oriented and do all these other things. I think sometimes people forget that I'm a disabled veteran too.
Yeah.
And I have feelings and I have, and all of those things. And sometimes we put people, you step up and I think that's sometimes where the fear is, right? If I step up too much, then too many people are going to notice me. And then that's when the criticisms and the things are going to come. But what I've had to learn as well is that for every one criticism, there's 100 plus cheers. And so, what are we going to focus on? Are we going to focus on the one criticism? Maybe it's a positive, a critique that I can take and utilize. Or are we going to focus on the 100 cheers and keep it moving? And that's what you have to remember as you're stepping up, that when you step up, sometimes there are going to be people and unexpected, you're like, I'm just trying to do good for the world, right? And
Yeah.
people are going to come and you're going to be like, where did this hate or animosity come from? But you have to remember all the good that you're doing will outweigh that negative voice. Period.
That calm. Just
Period.
say. And I guess if I had to say, because people ask me questions all the time, I'm sure as they do you. And always the biggest one is number one, the number one question is, if you were had one wish, would you wish to be out of the wheelchair? And I say no. And people are like, what? Oh my God, huh? And I say, you know why? Because I like the person that I have become. Again, it goes back to I was more crippled walking around than I ever have been in this wheelchair. And one of the things that probably the biggest thing that I did being in this wheelchair is I stepped up.
Yeah.
I stepped up.
Yeah. And you're serving a population that you may not have ever served had you not had
Yeah.
the injury.
And the piece that I really love is I get to change the face of what people think that disability is.
Yeah. You can
And
put your lashes on. And that's the thing I want to say. I'm looking forward to the cartoon because I want to see where the lash goes and where it ends up and the mischief that it gets in. I want to see the cartoon, the
you
animated
know what?
version.
I think okay. So we're gonna end with this because I mean this was a great, great, great discussion. And I mean we could talk about this, all day, every day, and really go in depth with it. But um I have a plethora of lashes. And these right here, let's see, they have like that hint of blue to match the blue that's in my outfit. And this particular one said they were my favorite because they were purple. They had purple glitter on them. So it looks like I had on, this eyeshadow. They were cute. Well, I took them off and one was missing. I don't know where this one little lash went. So I said, where are you, little lash? I rolled around and I couldn't find it. I even made my husband get down and look and see if maybe I dropped it and it was on one of the tires of my wheelchair and it wasn't there. And so for 2 weeks, I had to find other lashes to wear because everybody knows I always have on something purple and I didn't have my purple lashes to wear. So 2 weeks had gone by and I'm doing laundry and I'm changing the lint trap in the dryer and I find this lowly little lash. I'm like, where have you been, little lash? And it's like, how did you get there? So people have been saying, how did it get there? I'm like, I don't know how it
Mm.
got all the way from the bedroom to in the dryer and in the lint trap. And so
The Adventures of the Purple Lash.
so I had to have a funeral for my lash. I did. So we had I was the officiant.
Mm-mm.
So we had somebody said prayer,
Okay.
and then we read the scriptures. And I love Jennifer Holiday, and so she was the soloist, and she has a song. It's called "Gone Too Soon." And then one of the lines is like, because you all glittery and you with the stars, because you gone too soon. So,
Okay.
I played that and she sang, gone too soon. And of course, they had to play taps. And then I had some friends that, with their smart little selves, they wanted to, get a 2 minutes. I said, well, you got 2 minutes, 2 minutes only to talk about this lash. And so I had two people that wrote um, their own little condolence letter to me and about the lash. Mhm.
Mm. That's a lot.
And I even created the obituary in the program.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
clearly she was your favorite, and I'm so sorry that she's gone too soon.
Thank
Um,
you. I did get text messages said, I'm sorry for your loss.
yeah, yeah. I think I sent one.
Yeah, you
Okay.
did. I want to say thank you, for your text message and everything. And then I did have somebody that actually went out and bought me some new lashes to
Oh,
replace. I was like, what? It was like, I just want you to know that hopefully you can love this set of lashes like you did those. And I was like, I'll think about it.
well, I didn't mean to make this have a sad turn at the end of the show, but I'm glad that you're on the mend and you have some new friends to wear. And
But I do like that idea, the adventures of my lashes and where are they now? Like Carmen San Diego. Where in the world is Carmen Lashiego? I don't know.
okay, figure it out, get it together.
Sandy.
You're an entrepreneur, so. But I thank you so much for having me on today and giving me an opportunity to speak and share my voice again and see the viewers on here, some of the folks commenting. So I appreciate all of you all.
We love it. So we want to say thank you so much um, to my friend, Juris Doctorate, Miss JD.
Attorney.
I like that. She got I like that Juris Doctorate because she got for real letters behind her name. You see that Zaneta Adams, JD. That's not her boyfriend or nothing like that. That stands for Juris Doctorate. That means she is a full blown attorney.
No, yep. ESQ. Put ESQ behind it. There's the attorney
I
right
like
there.
that. Esquire. Yes.
Esquire, yes. Put the
Yes.
Esquire.
That's how we're gonna do that. And so I'm gonna put her on Front Street right now because there are times where we get, some things that might be legal. So we're gonna have a moment because I think I did get a phone call today about some legal matters concerning veterans, and I think that she's gonna be our Esquire for the show. And
Hmm.
we'll have her, and you guys can send in questions and comments, and she'll
Well,
answer.
we'll definitely need to talk about that one.
So, you
But
know,
if not, then I definitely have some folks who, if you're looking for an attorney, and I would say NVLSP is a great partner as well with the state,
uh,
especially.
special plug. We like shout outs here. That's a plug.
So yeah, NVLSP, they do free discharge upgrades, and they also do court of appeal claims for no cost as well. They could actually help you with your claim too. So it's National.
Where'd you go? Hello.
Sorry about that. So look up NVLSP
Okay.
and
I can type it here in the comments. So what's it called?
the national. So it's NVLSP. You can Google that, and you can
N
get free
V.
VLSP. So National Veterans Legal Services Program is what it stands for. And they can assist you with discharge upgrades and Court of Appeals claims, BVA. claims as well, and they do it at no cost. So you certainly want to do that. As always, you can reach out to my old stomping ground, 1-800-MISH-VET. A lot of great veteran service officers there, and I will definitely let you know if I can provide any assistance with the Esquire part.
Okay, so you want me to type 1-800.
MISH-VET. Yeah.
Wait a minute, that's the wrong sign symbol. 1-800 MICHVET.
Yeah.
Alrighty, and there we go. There you go. So everybody can see it. And there you have it, friends and neighbors. We want to say thank you so much for tuning in. And if you are struggling with PTSD, you're thinking about suicide, please give them a number for them to call.
988, press 1 if you're a veteran, and a veteran or a spouse can call that number. So 988, that's it. It's that simple. Press 1.
988. And if a vet, I'm going to do #1, right? Is the number that you're going to choose. If a vet, #1.
Yeah.
Boom. There we go. It's in the chat there.
Thank you so much for sharing those numbers.
So we want to say thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we'll definitely will see you again.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.